Hello, it's Greg Alice from Green Greg's coming to you on 22 June 22. Time on deck is 18:58 hours Central Daylight Time. My friends, I've told you before, basically that the war in Ukraine is not even about Ukraine. I've laid out how the Russians had this great strategic objective to have strategic depth in case they got invaded, how they wanted to plug the gaps where invasion forces have come in through the past, and how that essentially meant they had to reestablish the old Russian Empire. Well, even by Putin's own admission at the anniversary celebration of Peter the Great, he pretty much didn't just say that, he pretty much said that he wanted to build the Russian Empire, rebuild it in the footsteps of Peter the Great. He essentially wants to be Vladimir the Great, so it seems. Well, this whole thing about Lithuania seems to fit in that narrative. Now, I don't know if Russia can carry through with all that, but they certainly seem to want to have an excuse to hit some NATO countries. And it seems that the easiest pickings in the NATO world might be Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. With Lithuania being the top of the list because Lithuania gives them the first excuse. Now, the RAND Corporation and various and sundry NATO type and U.S. military think tank organizations have essentially said that Russia could take these Baltic nations within just a matter of days. Pretty much like they thought they could take Ukraine. That they could actually take those nations pretty straightforward, like a day, two, maybe three. And why is that? Well, for one, they're much smaller than Ukraine. They're very much smaller. It wouldn't take very long for Russian forces to roll through those countries. And there's not a lot there to defend them. It would be hard for NATO to get there. NATO could come through the Baltic Sea, but the Baltic Sea right now has got Kaliningrad as kind of a base to guard that, and Kaliningrad's the whole issue here, at least part of it. Or they'd have to come through the Suwalki Gap. The Suwalki Gap is about 40 miles long. It is the border between Poland and Lithuania, and it's about 40 miles between Kaliningrad and Belarus, great ally of Russia. So what you can expect is that Russia through Belarus, or the Belarusian forces together, might go in and try to plug that gap. One, to keep NATO forces going through, and two, to reestablish their supply lines to Kaliningrad. Now, so what is this all about? Well, it's about a lot of things, but on the surface of it, with respect to Kaliningrad, what it's given Vladimir Putin publicly, all his indigestion over all this, what they're griping about, is that Lithuania has decided they are going to abide by the economic embargoes set up by the European Union, which they're a member of, so they're supposed to follow those kind of things. But it's kind of in violation of a 2002 agreement they had with Russia, but that was a non-wartime agreement. So what it is Russia is sending supplies to Kaliningrad, and Lithuania has decided to blockade them, at least the ones going over land. Now, Russia put up a stink, so Lithuania backed off and talked about a 50% blockade and only certain items. Well, on that blockade list, of course, is military items, and I would say I can understand Lithuania in that regards because they got a fear that any military item sent to Kaliningrad is going to be used against them. So do you want to let somebody move stuff that's going to be shot at you later if you can avoid it? You're going to hesitate on that somewhat, I would think. Now, the other thing is that they're holding back on is alcohol. Well, now, if you get between a Russian and his vodka, I imagine he's going to want to go to war. So maybe that's the whole thing. You got between the Russians and his vodka. Don't get between a dog and his meat, you know, the old saying goes. So, yeah, I think that might be it right there. But, you know, seriously, guys, Kaliningrad is like a ginormous, biggest in the world, unsinkable aircraft carrier, battleship, aircraft carrier group all rolled in one. It is a area of Russia separated from Russia, kind of like Alaska from the United States. It's not land connected to Russia at all. In fact, but it's important to Russia because it is the only warm water access Russia has to the Atlantic Ocean, Baltic Sea, and all those areas. Russia views this as being highly strategic, and that's the kind of stuff they would fight a nuclear war over, is a piece of land like that. It used to be part of Germany, but after World War II, they basically ran the Germans out and took it over. So it's all Russians living there, some Russian oblasts now. but their only access is across land through Lithuania or through the sea, the Baltic Sea. Now, if Finland and Sweden join NATO, the Baltic Sea will be a NATO lake. And Russia is really adverse to that. And they might even attack Lithuania just to stop that from happening, or lessen the impact should that happen. The whole idea is if they take Lithuania, NATO may not join Finland and Sweden, or Finland and Sweden may back off, or even if they do join NATO, that at least they got a broader access to Kaliningrad. Now, Kaliningrad has Russian troops. It's got Russian nuclear devices there, nuclear missiles, maybe the Sarmat, because they're talking about the Sarmat being able to reach Britain so fast. So they're probably planning to mount the Sarmat in Kaliningrad. So Kaliningrad is an important strategic asset to Russia's warfighting capabilities, which makes it a target to anybody wanting to go to war with Russia. So, guys, I'm not, right here, I'm not justifying one thing or another. I'm just telling you that the Lithuanians are looking to blockade it, and Russia is looking to strike back at it because of that. Now, here's the other thing to know. This could get us involved in the war because we are treaty bound right now. Article 5 of the NATO treaty support NATO nations. And Lithuania is a NATO nation now. So this could get us wrapped into war directly with Russia. This is what you got to be concerned about. And furthermore, Britain has been pushing Ukraine not to make treaties. Unlike France and some of the other European countries, Britain has been pushing Ukraine not to make treaties right now with Russia or to negotiate an end to the conflict. France and some of the other countries have been suggesting to Ukraine, hey, look, we know you're tired, and why don't you? We don't want to really put anything else in this, so why don't you just negotiate with Russia, kind of like the Kissinger agreement, let them hold what they got and give Putin an exit strategy. But Britain and the United States and the Stoltenberg of NATO's go, oh, no, we can't let Russians do that. We got to punish them for what they've done. So, and anything like that's an reward. But the truth of the matter is, I'm really expecting that if something don't change, that Russia's going to win that war. The reason being is it reminds me a lot of the Civil War in the United States, the war between the states, as we call it in my neck of the woods here, or the war of recent unpleasantness, the northern aggression. But whatever you want to look at it, the North had 4 times more manpower, and they had the industry. When you look at the relationship between Russia and Ukraine, it's pretty much the same. Ukraine's got, has done well early on. Well, the South did early on, very early on during the war between the states. But in the last couple of years, especially after the Battle of Gettysburg, the tide turned. And the North started winning. It was inevitable because the South was losing troops. At the end of the war, the South had 13-year-olds and old men fighting on its side. That was its soldiers. And, there was such an attrition, the South couldn't replace its soldiers like the North could. And that's where Russia's at today. Russia's got a lot more population to draw from, and they've got industry. So even though they may be losing a lot in the war early on, they still got deeper pockets to draw from than does Ukraine. So if Russia is willing to expend the resources to fight it, that's an if they're willing to keep pressing like Vladimir Putin would want them to, then I would expect Russia to prevail, unless NATO does something really over the top. But then again, what are you risking? You're risking World War III. My big question is, why is America even in NATO? We are given the lion's share of the support of NATO, our troops, our young boys, and our money to defend Europe. Why is not Europe stepping up more to it? Why is it Europe into it proportionally as much as us, if not more? They got more at stake. We're covering their heinies, and yet we're doing it with our treasure and our blood, our young boys and girls. I'm having a hard time seeing. I just got to be frank about it. I'm having a hard time seeing the arrangement as it exists today. I think that needs a renegotiation. I think Trump went too light on it. Be honest, I think he did. A lot of people criticized him for criticizing that. He went over. He gave in too quick. That's what I'd say. Well, he did get some more out of Europe. He did do that, but frankly, the Europeans just aren't carrying their share. And what strategic interest do we have in Europe anymore? Yeah, it's an ancestral homeland. Well, whoopie doopie. What do they do for us today? My ancestors are so far removed from Europe that my grandmother argued with me when I told her that our ancestors came from here. She said, no, we've always been here. There's in the family no memory called the old country. I remember when I was a kid seeing on TV, what are they talking about, the old country? What is that? That's what they talk about up north, not down south, because our ancestors have been here too long for such talk. All right, so back to Russia. So what this means, guys, is that there's a huge chance of World War III. Now, I'm being, obvious, Captain Obvious, pardon me. But we are in NATO. We are in NATO, and a lot of, Biden and his crowd are committed to that. And so we could see this happen. Whether we like it or not, we may be in World War III, which means Russia may attack us. That's what we got to bear in mind. And it could be through an EMP attack here on our homeland or so forth. We've got prospects right now for war with China. We got prospects for war with, look, even NATO Nation Turkey is about to go in and hit part of Syria and groups down there that were friends and allies to Russia. And so there's some question, will Turkey and Russia get into it over that? And Turkey being a NATO nation, there we could get into Article 5 again. But then again, Russia might give in because Russia just can't cover as much as they could previously. So they might kind of give in a little bit to Turkey on that. We don't know yet how that's going to turn out. So there are a lot of risk points, a lot of flash points. Iran and Israel are probably about to get into it for real. I'll talk about that more in the future. Guys, subscribe to my channel, bang the up notification bell, and click all. And right now, if you're not prepping, I don't know what you're doing. Go to prepwithgregs.com and check out the specials right now where you can get long-term food storage, last 25 years, 2,000 calories a day, food that you can store and bug out with. If you can't afford that, go to the box store and get beans and rice. How much beans and rice do you want? And you better grow a garden. I got a big video coming out on that kind of stuff. So please, 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 guys, prep. Get ready. Do everything you can. Because we just don't know how much longer we got. We know the food prices are about to go through the roof. Availabilities might become a real problem. In some parts of the world, there's going to be starvation. So guys, it's going to be rough. We got a rough time coming no matter what. And it may entail war. It may entail our grid going down. It may entail full-scale attack upon us. We just don't know what's coming. We don't know, honestly. I'm hoping all that don't come. I'm hoping that's not what we're in for. I hope and pray. But if you don't consider the possibility, your eyes aren't wide open and your head's not on a swivel, guys. And right now, that's where you got to be. I always tell you that, so please consider it. Get ready, prep, do all you can. Anyway, thank y'all for watching, and let's hope and pray for the best, but prepare for the worst. Greg out.